welcome everyone. My name's Matt Dancona, as you've just heard, and it's fantastic to have this full house, and I know many more joining us online. It's funny, I can't remember an event that I've chaired where so many people have asked me about it in advance and expressed real enthusiasm about our speaker. But actually, it's no surprise, because one can go through his academic distinctions. Slavoj Zizek is an international director of the Birkbeck Institute for the Humanities, senior researcher at the Department of Philosophy at the University of Ljubljana, an eminent scholar at the Kyunghee University Seoul. He's written more than 50 books in many languages. As he himself would say, blah, blah, right? But I think no resume of his accomplishments captures the sheer excitement and intellectual power he has brought to the public space, or his capacity to make ideas of immense erudition and complexity appealing to those who lack his philosophical abilities, which is to say pretty much everybody else. So thank you, Slavoj. It's wonderful to see you, and thank you all for joining us again.
And in my KGB file, private, there is a dossier on you, and it's a good one. I know about
He's got a dossier.
So when we, the people, take over, the trains to Gulag will be full. If you behave properly, you will not be on them.
I feel I should quit while I'm ahead. Okay. Now, we're going to be discussing his new book out this week, Too Late to Awaken, What Lies Ahead, and When There Is No Future, which contains a paradox which we'll tease out. Slavoj and I will be talking for about 45 minutes, and then we'll move on to your questions. And I'm keen to get as many questions as we can, because I know everyone is dying to ask him about all sorts of things. So let's just dive in. The book begins with a paradox, I think, anyway. Let me quote it. What if the only way to prevent a catastrophe is to assume that it has already happened, that we're already 5 minutes past 0 hours? Explain. Elaborate.
Where do you find this? In my book, my God. No, quite seriously, yeah. I know. No, you know what's my idea? And here I implore you to read him. My good friend, an excellent theorist of catastrophes, Jean-Pierre Dupuy, D-U-P-U-Y, who circulates between Paris and Santa Cruz, I think. His idea is precisely this one, and he has, although he is a left-winger, he proposes even beautiful right-wing successful strategy examples. Like, I remember after the Helsinki Agreement in the 70s, which Soviet Union signed that it will respect human rights and so on, there was a disorder in the West, people claiming, no, we capitulated, the Cold War is over, Soviet Union won. No, it was precisely the opposite. It worked. That is to say, the way to, what does it mean to accept that the catastrophe already happened? It's something, sorry, I have to go very briefly, if I can, into some kind of elementary theory or philosophy. Every present situation includes its own past and its own future. And I shamelessly here quote all the time one line from T.S. Eliot, a conservative, who gives the best definition that I know of what a true revolutionary break means. He says that a really true new work of art doesn't only make a cut with the past. He changes, redefines the entire past. Okay, I will not get lost here in quoting the old examples of how each epoch reinvents its own Shakespeare, and it's too easy to say, no, we just project our traumas into it. No, what if Shakespeare in himself was not a fully fixed totality, but it was a text open towards the future, so that we, again, there are literally open spaces in Shakespeare, which means that we are maybe in a much better position than Shakespeare from later time to see what Shakespeare wanted to say, or whatever you want. So Dupuy's idea is, for me, profoundly Hegelian one, but for some idiots not, that the future is open in the sense that something happens contingently, but once it happens, it retroactively creates its own necessity. Things retroactively become necessary. I will not lose time now in old examples that I like. For example, my eternal example is, of course, love. How? You fall in love for a series of reasons, but you see these reasons only after you already fall in love. Love is never this type of external comparing. I like your, I will try to be abstract. I like your hair, your smile, your legs. Oh, and let's make a list. Oh, you have 3 points, you only 2, I fall in love with you. No, only once you are already in love, you fall in. Once you already, the term fall is here crucial. It's fall a cut, you retroactively create reasons. And I think that today, very quickly, back to Dupuy, he thinks that, today we are in such an open situation. He thinks that's the key to that cheap paradox. Yes. It's not simply there are still different options. No, there are literally different necessities. If we follow the way things are going, and also on the first page already, I introduced this distinction which works only in French and some other languages, not in German, not in English, between futur and avenir.
Yeah.
Futur is future. It's more or less continuation of what goes on. If it just goes on the way it is, then I think we are lost. We need avenir, something, a break, something new to come. Otherwise, and we can talk about this afterwards, for example, if you try to think about the ongoing Gaza-Israel war in the terms of simple future, it can only end in a catastrophe for both sides. There are now already clear signs of anti-Semitism exploding, of anti-Islamism, and so on and so on. It will be a catastrophe. It may well end in what is an absolute nightmare for me, that Jews, the great victims of European Holocaust, will become, for a new third world young generation, the symbol of oppression and colonization, so that anti-Semitism will become one of the big words of this fake new left. So what I'm saying is that the catastrophe happens already, means that if we take the existing order the way it is, the catastrophe is clearly inscribed into it. At the level of immigration, military conflicts, ecology, artificial intelligence, and so on and so on. So I follow here Dupuy, who claims it's not enough to think in this old paradigm of, oh, there is still time, 5 minutes to noon, we can make choices. No. The future is already written into our fate, but we can change our fate. I think what can save us is a much more radical change. You may say, now you are dreaming. No, and not, although what we need is a similar procedure, but not what he's doing. Like, you probably all read that big bestseller from David Graeber, who unfortunately died, The Dawn or whatever. I unfortunately don't agree with his idealization of the Inca Empire and so on. But he is thinking in the right terms. The only way to open a path to a different future is to begin by rewriting the past radically. We are within the narrative that we are telling ourselves. If we remain within this narrative, we are lost. And not to take too much time, I'm sorry. Here, I also am beginning to get critical of Marx himself. I think, to put it in very brutal terms, that for Marx, very brutally, I developed this in some of my old books, communism comes too close to capitalism without capital, without capitalism. He still thinks in this term of capitalist self-propelling dynamics. He just thinks that we are now at a stage where, if we abolish capital order, we will get capitalist dynamics at its purest. I don't agree with this, but at the same time, and that's the difficulty, I disagree with you should read him, good friend and very intelligent guy, Kohei Saito, the Japanese eco-socialist, who the title of his last book, Slow Down, says it all. I don't think this is the solution. He simply thinks, take it easier, step out into this permanent dynamic self-exploration. We have really to make not so much a revolution in the sense of killing millions or whatever, but a revolution in the sense of changing, rewriting the entire past. Let me give you an example here, and then I will stop. I don't mean, imagine a world, it's quite possible, where in a worldwide catastrophe, Europe loses, and then another narrative emerges, and please don't misunderstand me here. I am very open towards the Palestinian suffering and so on, but in this narrative, which is, I think, a false anti-colonial narrative, Holocaust becomes a minor. You remember that obscene debate a year or two ago between some post-colonialists and some focused on Holocaust, where one side said Holocaust is the absolute crime, don't even compare it with colonialism. The other side says, no, Holocaust is a minor European story. The true horror is colonialism. I think the moment we think in these terms, we are lost. Both are, in their own way, incomparable horrors. We should avoid this when sometimes, as a rule, opposites or what appear as opposites can all be terrifyingly, brutally wrong. This is why, to go to the topic which we will leave to the end generally, what I really hate is the logic of, and you hear it on both sides. Some leftists say, yeah, maybe some Palestinians a little bit anti-Semitic, but look what Israel is doing to them, they have a right to be. On the other hand, some Zionists are saying, look, yes, it's not nice what Israel is doing there, but think about Holocaust, it's practically justified. My claim is that the moment you accept this logic, you've sold your soul to the devil. If we don't accept that, fighting anti-Semitism and fighting for, not Hamas, but let's call it dignified life for West Bank Palestinians, must be part of the same struggle. The moment you think about this in the term of the choices, you know, it's over. So again, back to this point, I think that, you know, this wonderful metaphor of Walter Benjamin, and I love him. Why? Because a couple of years ago, there was some anniversary of Benjamin, and with some friends of mine, I collaborated and organized, this was a wonderful event, a colloquium on Walter Benjamin, a Jewish thinker, in Ramallah, West Bank. And it was a miracle, you know. Yes. Palestinians, Israelis, others debating. Walter Benjamin said something wonderful. He said that a new work of art is sometimes like a film, a shot on a film, for which the developing chemical has not yet been invented. And you see, I didn't lose my thread. Immediately back, and then I stopped. I said, I think now for the fourth or fifth time, and then I stopped. Yes. Now. Yeah, and that this is our moment today. Imagine that a new post-European culture will emerge in which Holocaust will effectively be limited to, yes, some bad things happen there, who cares, we want the anti-colonial struggle, and so on and so on and so on. Here, to provoke you, I'm very sorry, but today, precisely, when everybody likes to shit on Europe, I'm more and more becoming pro-European. Yes, I'm aware of all the horrors that Europe did, colonialism and so on, but name me a better or even another serious conceptual apparatus to criticize precisely what went wrong in Europe, which is not already embedded in European legacy of enlightenment.
It has an autocorrect facility.
Sorry?
It has
yeah.
an autocorrect
and it's
facility.
quite unique in this, I think.
Let's ask another big question. You talk a lot in the book about war communism as a binding concept.
This is a tough one. No, I know.
Well, you did ask me to be Stalin, so you
absolutely,
comrade. So, what is war communism?
Something very simple. I think, and we may disagree. People usually, react in a much more rude way than you did kindly. They say, "Are you crazy? What do you mean by this?" And I tell them very simply.
That's the next question.
Sorry? Yeah. I think that we in Western Europe, and up to a point United States, incidentally, United States is a true cancer today. What is going on with United States is that, you know, I'm here communist conservative. It's not madness, in the sense that the base of our lives should be, or all social lives, some elementary social pact of unwritten rules, how we decently treat each other. And for me, the symptomal point, much worse than Trump, I'm such a pessimist about the United States that I'm almost tempted to say, maybe if guys like DeSantis, but he is now happily 3 points off, but this new guy, Mike Johnson, if guys like this win, we will have nostalgia for Trump, I'm telling you.
Bring back Trump.
Sorry?
Bring back Trump.
Yeah, because, you know, he is, if you read not just what he says, but the implicit, unwritten presuppositions of what he's openly against democracy. His message is theocracy. It's horror. So what I'm saying is that in this situation, we are confronting troubles. Which troubles? Ecology, where I'm also not the short-term pessimist. I'm well aware how science is uncertain here. You know, for example, I'm old enough, I remember 40 years ago around, a big topic in Germany was Waldsterben, the dying of forests. And there were predictions at that point 2010, 2020, there will be no forests in Europe, and so on. So they are making many mistakes. And I agree with those who say also, don't focus too much on global warming, sun. The true worry should perhaps be down in oceans. What is coming? But I think that we are approaching not a singular catastrophe, but some kind of a generalized disorder. What do I mean by this? I read a very intelligent analysis where they claim we have a too optimist idea of global warming. We think, okay, temperatures will go up for 4 or 5 degrees, and then it will be tougher. Maybe this part of London will be already underwater. The idea is that Hampstead up there, buy land there if you have money, that it will be the new coast, very nice. But what I'm saying is that it's like tougher for us, but nonetheless a new stability. Many scientists are claiming something much more dangerous. What if, and there are natural processes which are organized like this, what if there will not be a new stability, but imagine a new weather pattern where there will simply be sometime no summer, then summer for a longer time, chaotic weather, and so on. We have this. We have artificial intelligence. And I don't share the common stupid fears about it. They are way too optimistic, you know. Either we will become part of the machine, or the one where I become defender of death penalty, you know. The idiots, these new age singularity idiots who claim we will merge with the new singularity of intelligence, we will directly become unified with God, and so on. No, it's practically I have great respect for India. Just don't mention me the name Bhagavad Gita. Because you saw the movie, sorry, I'm repeating myself, but did you see the movie Oppenheimer? You remember at the beginning when Oppenheimer is screwing Florence Pugh, the author, you remember that she asked him, or he, her, I forgot, to read Bhagavad Gita. And
she asks him. She takes the book off the shelf and says, read it.
Yeah, but then Indians, Hindus there exploded.
Yes, they were not
dirty
pleased.
Thing like sex, they spoiled it with the most sacred book. Yeah. My opinion is the opposite one. Beautiful act of sex, and they spoiled it with one of the nastiest books that you can imagine. A book which, I'm repeating this all the time here, which, do you know that this was Heinrich Himmler's sacred book? Heinrich Himmler, the Nazi, asked himself, how can we, SS, do the horrible thing we have to do for Germany, kill all the Jews, children, women, and remain decent? His answer was Bhagavad Gita. Right. This lesson of how don't get identified with your acts, but act with the...
I think this is all good material for Christopher Nolan for the director's cut, isn't it, really? I mean, he needs to cut this scene out. By the sound of it, really
I know. Yeah, I have... Okay, let's not get lost into it. My favorite Christopher Nolan is Prestige. Did you see that one?
That's a brilliant film.
That's a brilliant one, no? But okay, I will finish directly. I think we have a whole series of what Dupuy calls fixed point. If things go on like they go on, we are approaching some kind of catastrophic point. And to confront this properly, we will need, when I say war communism, I don't mean happy communist affluence, I mean something pretty pessimistic. I think that without any panic, we should prepare for new modes of emergency state. What if there is a global disaster here, a civil war there? How to react, not in a panic, but to prevent the horrible possibility that the fascists will do it for us. The fascists are always good at using this situation. So this is all I mean, and when people ask me, but you must be crazy, this cannot happen. I told them, well, when even Trump was forced to do this, you know what I mean by war communism? Trump, not my favorite guy, but remember what he had to do during the epidemic. Every family got a check for $2,000 and so on and so on. This was communist measure in the simple sense that a concern for welfare of the being led even Donald Trump to do things which clearly violate all the market rules. And the result should be very interesting for us if we still are some kind of leftists. The result is that how false are those standard predictions, you know? Oh, if you do this or that, if you raise taxes a little bit, there will be an economical catastrophe. No, incredible things happened. And there was no economic catastrophe. This gives me hope. We can afford measures which are from the ruling market ideology a catastrophe, and we can survive it. And so this is what I mean simply by war communism. No panic, but we have to prepare for extraordinary circumstances. And even Trump did another thing, which was done under Roosevelt. You know, this idea that when there is an urgency, for example, during World War II, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, didn't just leave it to the market. He ordered certain industries produce this, that. The result was not a catastrophe. You know that only the World War II really pulled the United States out of the crisis. Late 30s, it was still crisis. I'm not saying we need a new world war, but what I am saying is that there will be new emergency states, and we should prepare to deal with them in an open, transparent way, but in the spirit of global solidarity. Because, and I don't mean this in an empty way. I think that the horror of what is going today is that some third world countries are taking from Europe precisely the worst part of European legacy, which is strong, ethnically based nation state. That's how I read solely, even as far as I know, China today. Why are they screwing up Uyghurs, Tibetans? It's clearly the more they claim they are against Eurocentric domination, they are copying, following the European nation-state model. It's the same in India, what Modi is doing. It's the same in Turkey with Erdogan. Never forget this. In the last centuries, Turkish empire, whatever is what, Sultan, was a relatively very decentralized, and the ones who did all the horrors, you remember the Armenian genocide, it was the young Turks who wanted to modernize Turkey along the lines of the European nation state. So all I mean by war communism is let's get ready in an organized way for new, unpredictable, but we know where they will come from, emergency states.
So one of the things that you say in the book, and I know you've talked about a little bit before, you're deeply sympathetic to the social justice movements we've seen in the last 10 years or so. You have great sympathy for their ideals, but you think that they are a distraction from the bigger project, which you talk about. The problem is we don't have enough globalization. We don't have enough change in our socio and economic. And so what the right call wokery, a term I don't like, but that's what they call it, is in your view a distraction. Is that correct?
Yeah, but not. But let me be very precise here. I'm not saying that the struggle for gay rights and female rights, or whatever you call them, is in itself a distraction. I'm criticizing the specific way it is practiced. Apropos, globalization. You know, the catastrophe today, I think it's not globalization, is that it's globalization, which my conservative friend, but he's not an idiot, the German philosopher Peter Sloterdijk, he put it very nicely. He said that we live in a globe which is isolated. It's just from inside, you don't see the limit. It's like transparent glass. We don't even perceive those who are outside. And why am I for globalization? The left was right. Traditional social democracy, although it's the best thing probably that we had, no longer fully works. So-called really existing socialism no longer really works. Now there are guys, I'm sympathetic towards them, although one of them, Noam Chomsky, really hates me, which always shocks me. I have nothing against him. But, you know, they are secretly or more and more openly neo-anarchists. They said, no, states screw everything up. We need gradual unification from low-level initiatives. I'm sorry if you know it, evoke another example here. You remember, some of you maybe know this example of mine, was it 2 years and a half ago, I think, the great summer heat in Northern California, southern part of Western Canada, Seattle, Vancouver. For a couple of weeks, temperatures there were around 50 degrees Celsius. It was warmer there than in Mumbai and Arab Emirates. Now, there the approach has to be global. You cannot blame them. These are rich part who followed all the usual ecological rules. The problem is not what they were doing. The problem is that the disturbance in the global circulation of air around the northern hemisphere produced that effect. Even to approach the problem, we have to have a global approach. We need globalization. And here, capitalism is strong. I don't have any illusions about Biden. Incidentally, I have friends who have friends who have friends who are in the White House. And I learned, you know why Biden reacted the way he did? It was not nice, because Jews will pay the price. Apropos Israeli war, he thought, I'm perceived as senile, weak, and so on. So let me appear a strong guy, warrior, and let's get Jews on my side. I think this will lead to a catastrophe. But what I want to say is that nonetheless, for example, one of the first, so you will not say that I'm not a realist, economic measures which were debated, but of course nothing came out of it, and the finance minister, I don't know how she's called officially, of Biden, Janet Yellen,
yes,
proposed the key is some kind of global profit, you know, to prevent this, the capital, if the interest rates are higher here or profit rates and so on. Quite pragmatic measures like this, which could be done. So again, the key is not one big world government. That would be, would you agree, unimaginable corruption, unfortunately, yeah. No? But some kind of unification, not just this pathetic unification, you know, like, oh, we are all one humanity. This sounds like this disgusting. When I was young, there was to publish UNICEF books about human culture.
It would upset Jordan Peterson, which has that on its side.
Sorry?
It would upset Jordan Peterson, who I know feels very strongly about one world government. So there's that going for it.
Yeah, but you know what? Here is another one. You know what happens with Peterson? I'm proud to say.
You debated him.
While I debated him, he privately to me then conceded defeat, no? And then he was in a deep crisis, and then I don't know what we're doing.
But he's in a deep 45-year-long crisis.
Sorry?
He's been in a crisis for 45 years, has he not?
Yeah, but yes, he really eats only red meat, half raw,
yes,
and so on,
yeah.
all that madness. But the point is that at that point, with the debate after me, about with me, he still I think, at least drew attention to some correct problems. Like, I liked his point against this perception of self-victimization. I don't think the strategy of those who are exploited, corrupted, and so on should be, no, this competition of victims, who is more victim, and so on and so on. On the opposite, the lower classes should adopt a much more active, self-asserting stance, and so on and so on. Then he was for some time in a crisis, and now he emerged as something that I must say I no longer follow.
Yes,
he said that for this, I hope we make a pact here. You are whatever you are, a Jew, but I don't know where you stand religiously.
Yes.
I am an atheist Christian, and I hope we both agree when he said, God appeared to me and I was talking with God.
Yeah,
for me, gulag for life. You know why? Because the great thing about Jewish and Christian tradition is that's why you have already in Judaism iconoclasm. It's not this mysticism of, no, God is beyond, we don't know. It means don't build paintings of God, but in your activity actualize God. God is in how you deal with others. That's the lesson of Christianity for me also. That's why I call it materialist religion. You remember when some idiot, one of those, I don't know who, apostles asked Christ, but how will we know that you will return? And Christ answers very clearly, when there will be love between two of you, I will be there. So in this sense, I claim provocatively that Holy Spirit, what Christians call Holy Spirit, is, sorry for provocation, the first known form in humanity of a communist party.
I love it.
You know what I mean by this? A form of social solidarity where hierarchic status and so on doesn't matter. This is why, so that you will not think I'm crazy, I think that the entire history of Christianity is one big struggle against the emancipatory core of its own legacy. And then I will stop. My favorite example here that I quote often, you know when Napoleon was crowned and he took out of Pope's hand the crown and put it on his own head. And it's apocryphal, but it's, how do Italians say, se non è vero è ben trovato.
Keep the legend.
Yeah. The Pope told him, I know, sire, what you want, to destroy Christianity. Believe me, we, the church, are trying to do this for 2,000 years, and we didn't succeed.
I want to, before we move to questions, Slavoj, I want to ask you, there was one sentence in the book that just really leapt off the page, and it's about mobilization. And you say, I'm quoting, it's not enough to tell the truth. One has to tell it in a way that mobilizes people to act on it, not to indulge in self-righteous satisfaction. I mean, that's something to have tattooed on my back. I mean, I'm all there. But
how do you know that you have it tattooed? Do you look
I want to. I don't know. I want others to see it. I mean, come on.
Yeah. No. You know what I was thinking here?
Yeah.
I'm so sad we don't have enough time. We have to play these stupid democratic games. People there asking questions, but it was this devil who is giving us signals here.
It's Comrade Stalin.
Comrade Stalin, yeah.
Yes.
No, seriously. You know what makes me a pessimist today? I developed this in this book.
He really doesn't like it, does it? It's the Q&A. It's bugging him.
Yeah. No, seriously, very briefly. Already Peter Sloterdijk, who is a very complex person, I learned many things from him, developed in his book, which is now almost 40 years, even more old, his first mega bestseller, Critique of Cynical Reason. He wonderfully turns around Marx, saying that it's not as Marx says. They don't know it, but they are doing it. He says today's formula is We know what we are doing, but nonetheless, we are doing it. That today, we live in such cynical times that it's not only that no matter what you say, the dominant capitalist system reproduces itself, it's that, as it were, it needs permanent self-critique to reproduce itself. What do I mean by this? A marginal example that I mentioned there. I hate, if I were to be a Comrade Stalin dictator, the first thing I would have done is to prohibit these big biennales, Venice, Kassel, and so on. If you look at their programmatic notes, it's always, we are manipulated by big capital, Africa, Asia, resist, and so on. But precisely as such, they fit perfectly the financial machinery of global market. You know, the very radical critique of commercialization of art and so on is part of it. So that's, I think, the problem today. How to, it's not so much the truth, or the British example that I like, that is to say, hate. I like how I hated it. You remember 3 years ago when in Glasgow, there was the big against global...
COP26, I think it was.
No, I'm talking about
summit.
Summit.
Climate,
yeah. And you're, at that point, still Prince, now King Charles was there, doing everything, all that matter, 5 minutes to 12 we have to do, and absolutely, practically nothing came out of it. Yeah. And I'm here even more a pessimist. You heard what I'm not just saying, no matter what you say, the catastrophe will happen. I'm saying the way we criticize the system is part of the system itself. And I don't know here clearly what to do. I have just a couple of ideas, provocative, trigger warning, or how to say now. One would be this one. My God, I'm tired, and the left should maybe learn a little bit from this. Isn't it clear that today, with the way the new populist right is functioning, this idea of, hundreds of thousands of people on the street penetrating the seat of power is appropriated by the new right. Postmodern cynicism, cynical distance, they do it. So my idea, don't kill me, is this one. That's why, I don't know where he is now, I like pretty much a person like Bernie Sanders, because the shortest way to describe him, to confront Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, if there ever was a postmodern president, precisely in this caricatural right-wing way, the guy who is cynical, doesn't have any Christian values, and so on, Donald Trump is a pure postmodern relativist. No? And if there ever was a person who, don't laugh please, who embodies silent majority with its simple, ordinary people, moral decency, and so on, it's Bernie Sanders. Yeah. There is nothing cheaply subversive about him. He doesn't play these games. And this, I think, is why a certain discourse of resistance, public violence, and so on, fits perfectly the system today. Maybe the left should turn around the story and say, law and order. Yes, please, because sorry, you, new populists, you are the ones who are the true threat to law and order. And so on and so on. I mean, that was my point there.
Pretty good point. Right, we're going to move to Q&A, and I have a kickoff, How To Academy ran an online competition to ask the first question.
How much you got paid? Did the winner pay you? No.
Not enough. And the question is, what are your thoughts on the current situation in Israel and Gaza?
Okay. I said and wrote enough about it, and it got me in trouble with all sides,
Yeah.
you know. Because,
In Frankfurt.
In Frankfurt. First, why I do, in contrast to many leftists, you can then attack me if you want. Why I do unconditionally condemn, is this a question or? No, sorry,
No, it's
why
just a strange semiotic.
Why I do unconditionally condemn Hamas is that, this may be a surprising detail for you, but I don't know directly people who were massacred there in the south in that kibbutz rave party, but I know people who knew them. You know that this was the most open part of the Israelis. They were in constant contact with Gaza, helping them. So the message, to put it like this, of the Hamas attack was not simply kill Israelis, but was a war whose aim was to eternalize war, to kill the very thought, the very possibility of long-term peace. And especially another moment here. Do you remember what went on in Israel a couple of months ago? This tremendous social movement. Yes, for a secular Israeli state against religious fundamentalists and so on. Now, not quite. There are already signs of resistance, but that is over. So this brought the wrath of some Zionists on me, because I never said they are all the same. What I simply said is this. Hamas is a horrible thing. And their guy, Haniyeh, said something horrible at the beginning of this war, the first, second day. He said, my message to Jews is, all that land is ours, F 3 points off. Go out, no place for you. But then, you have statements from this ongoing Israeli government, which in a slightly more polite way is saying a similar thing. It's not the same. It says Israel is exclusively the state of the Jews. We have all that land is ours, and so on and so on. What I'm afraid is that on both sides, this logic will prevail. So I am not, and my true horror here, and I'm afraid that Jews will pay the price, is, for example, I always mention this, just Google him. How can a country like Israel have a minister for social security, whatever, who is Itamar Ben-Gvir, a guy who was 20 years ago condemned by the Israeli court itself as a potential terrorist and racist? This guy is now running security. So I'm not establishing, I'm not crazy, any parallel and so on. I said destroy Hamas, I never said destroy Israel.
You said destroy Hamas often, actually.
Yes, but nonetheless, you know what shocked me a little bit? The more I say this, the more I'm accused of, I don't know how, from some deep hermeneuticians, that my true message is nonetheless that I'm pro-Hamas,
Yes.
I'm not crazy, my God. I mean, we try to organize also, apart from Benjamin, a conference in Jenin with my Jewish friends, and that big Jewish Palestinian actor and cultural Giuliano Mercanis, conference on movies. It was the Palestinian hardliners who shot him there on the street. It was too much, this cultural collaboration and so on. What I am just saying, I hope this is not too much, is that people claim I'm relativizing what Hamas did in the south of Israel. No, contextualizing something doesn't mean to relativize it. It means to see the ground out of which a thing like this was possible to emerge. I give you another example. Maybe you read it in some of my texts, recent reactions. Of course, Hitler has to be contextualized, but this doesn't redeem him in any way. It's clear that Nazi anti-Semitism could have emerged in a very specific situation after World War I, the so experienced humiliation of Germany, Versailles peace, economic crisis, and so on and so on. This in no way means Hitler was partially justified. It just means analyze the ground out of...
Explanation is not excuse.
Absolutely not. It is still absolute evil, what Hitler did. And all I'm saying is that in the long term, the only way to a lasting peace in the Middle East is, and I'm quoting here Yuval Harari, my God. He said nicely that in the land which is their homeland, he admits this, Harari, he means the land which is now controlled by Israel, we should allow Palestinians to live in peace, to lead a free, dignified life. With, I agree with him, all these guarantees against threats and so on and so on. And it was a little bit of a bad mistake, a bad feeling for me, surprised that I was attacked from both sides. One side, people probably close to Hamas, don't you see that Hamas is really an anti-colonial movement? And then, on the other hand, Zionists that I'm relativizing it. No, again, contextualization is not a relativization. It is still absolute evil, if I may use this term. No, but absolute evil emerges at precise points of history. That's all I'm saying. My true fear here is that this war will trigger a new wave of anti-Semitism in Europe, which will then put a gentle pressure on Jews to move if Israel will win, but I'm not sure there. And I remember the reaction some 10 years or 5 ago, maybe you know better. Netanyahu called, invited French Jews, because there were some anti-Semitic, please come to Israel. The immediate reaction of the French right was, yeah, follow Netanyahu, just go there. No, I think with all my sympathy for Palestinians that there would have been no European enlightenment without Jews, because enlightenment means you think beyond your ethnic identity, you are open to some kind of relativization, but this time in a good sense. You know where enlightenment begins? When Descartes, good guy, I don't buy this bullshit about Descartes, male chauvinist. Do you know that Descartes triggered among rich ladies, there was no other public there, a great feminist movement? Not just Queen Christina from Scotland, many others. They said, cogito has no sex. We are finally equal with men. And this is a wonderful moment when, I don't know which one, Discourse of Method or the other book, Descartes says that first as a young kid, when he met people from other cultures, he found their habits strange. Then he asked himself, my God, but what if in their eyes our own customs are also strange and weird? That's where it all begins. And this wouldn't have taken place without Jews. So what I'm saying is, please remain here. The anti-Semitic strategy today tends to be Zionist, which means we love Jews, but if you are there, don't be here. No, Jews are the ones who, kind of, you know, it's like salt, pepper, or what, who bring diversity, a dissonant voice, without which there is no progress. I mean, this is where things made me a pessimist. Maybe there is a hope that out of this carnage, there are already voices in Israel, and also I'm a great friend of Palestinians. Don't underestimate them. Did you read a small note in the newspapers that when Mahmoud Abbas, the chief of PLO said about a month and a half ago some very stupid thing, which was, yeah, Jews, they deserved Holocaust because they were dealing too much with finances, profiting. Well, F you, I would say. Yes, they were. Why? Because they were prohibited to own land.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so, but immediately, over 100 Palestinian intellectuals, philosophers, Palestinian, from the West Bank and Israel to United States, immediately published a letter condemning Abbas, claiming, sorry, this is not our struggle, we are not anti-Semites, and so on. On the other hand, there is hope that more and more Israelis will see this basic thing that Yuval Harari said. As long as I don't like the term Palestinian question because it's patronizing. It's the same, for the same reason that many feminists don't like the term woman's question, you know, as if, oh yeah, it can wait after the revolution. We will then solve the woman's question, you know. That's why I like to praise a Muslim country, Iran, not the elite. You know what they did a couple of months ago, or even more now, with that women demonstrating? This is what we need in the West against that Kurdish girl killed. A mega all-national movement, and in the focus of it was women's struggle. But they caught all, Muslims, men, and so on. That's what we need, and they did it. So I'm always waiting for miracles, not divine miracles, but miracles in the sense that, who knows, maybe out of all this mega bullshit, people will at some point say, sorry, are we getting crazy? This doesn't lead anywhere. Let's get what I quoted at the beginning, a different avenir. We have to rewrite.
A different avenir. Excellent. Yeah. Now, in the interest of making what remains of our avenir.
Sorry, can I ask you something?
See?
No.
I was going for the avenir.
As a Jew, what would you... Yeah, I'm anti-Semitic, I know that.
No.
How would you answer to this? Where do you see the solution? I'm very open here. I'm not bluffing.
I'm what
Middle East.
I'm what trolls call Sephardo trash, which is lovingly, which is that my family many generations ago were Jewish, and then they converted in the 15th century. So I haven't been Jewish for quite a while. But that said, I'm a philo-Semite. So I like what I hear from you.
You know, because you know what I will tell you, I always repeat this, also another crucial story. The main tragedy of European modernity, I repeat this all the time, is that when you said my back family converted, till French Revolution, the problem with Jews for anti-Semites was the one of conversion. Yes. They converted, but should we believe them? Do they still secretly, no?
Now you're talking.
No, I'm not, but with the 19th century, when Napoleon, whatever bad things you think about him, I do, gave Jews the full civil rights and so on, you know. And this is the dark side of modernity. Anti-Semitism turned much darker, potentially violent. The problem was not any longer to convert the Jews. They were a priori condemned as if their degeneration is in their very genes nature. So openly you find this in Wagner and in others, although in Wagner it was in a much more noble way. They detected a secret longing for suicide in the Jewish soul. And they claimed like annihilation, also a noble annihilation and so on. you know. And I think that this is the dark paradox, that at the very point after the French Revolution, when it looked that anti-Semitism is, at least at the formal state level, over, it re-emerged in a much darker way. By this I mean no way out to Jews. Even if you convert, we will not trust you, it's in your blood. So I don't even dare to think what will happen. I know many hundreds of Palestinians. I can tell you something. If there is part of the Arab world which is definitely not in its majority anti-Semitic, it's Palestine. Go to Ramallah. I found there, I didn't enter it, I'm normal, heterosexual, bad joke, but I found there a gay club. I found there constant debates between Jews, Palestinians. If I were to move to Israel, I would move to Haifa. Haifa is the most open city with clubs where Israeli Palestinians and Jews meet. So it is possible, miracles are possible. What makes me afraid is that not only Israel, other Arab countries are playing dirty games by on purpose keeping alive or like keeping Palestinians in a state. So anti-Semitism is from then a way to avoid their own inconsistencies and so on. And here I'm so critical, and people think I'm against immigrants. No, on the contrary. For example, Saudi Arabia, a wealthy country, Kuwait, Dubai, and so on. I'm not talking now only about Palestinians, but refugees from Syria, Afghanistan, whenever. Why don't do these rich countries not accept any immigrants? It's strictly controlled. They only accept workers on a very limited base. Did you read? That was the true scandal. Did you read 2-3 months ago how they discovered that on the border with Yemen, Saudi Arabia had special helicopter units, guns, bombs. They simply kill all the refugees from Ethiopia, from Africa, Muslim refugees who try to enter Saudi Arabia. So for the Arabs, I also think that they use in a different way, but nonetheless structurally similar to the European way. They play the card of Palestinians and Jews to cover up their own antagonisms and so on. They are all playing very dirty games there. To give you the last proof,
I need to bring some of the questions.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take 4 questions. There's a person there. Hold on, wait for the microphone. And we'll take 4.
All right, so could you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yep. So as we all know that Karl Marx was born in a Jewish family, and he wrote a few articles on the Jewish people. So do you have any comments or concerns on Karl Marx's Jewish identity and background?
Okay, wait. And then wait. And then just here. Just here. And other questions up on the balcony. Yes, just there. Afterwards. Yes, please.
Hello. You mentioned that The Prestige is your favourite film. I noticed that
By Nolan, not...
Yeah. And it's David Bowie who plays Nikola Tesla in it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned
David Bowie plays Tesla. No?
Yeah. And you haven't spoken much about the Balkans yet. And I'd
Sorry,
say
about?
The Balkans, former Yugoslavia. And that's somewhere I would argue that really needs to think about how it radically rethinks its past to move forward. So how does it do it?
Okay, and then there's there.
Thank you. Dobro večer. Thank you, Slavoj.
Dobro večer i vama. Although, you know, because... Practically all people here just this dirty joke. This is always allowed. Don't understand our language. You know, I'm sorry you're not closer to me physically, because what I like to do is, if I have somebody who speaks some language that
Я
only
pričam
we
odavde.
Sorry?
Sa balkona.
Okay, sorry, I stop. Okay.
Evo sam.
Please, go on.
Thank you. So I'm from Siberia, offspring of Gulag people and survived ones.
Good.
And I was talking to my mom today, because trying to refresh the philosophy of 20th century, thinking, okay, we do really sit on a trauma and process trauma a lot in the 20th century philosophy. And in 21st century, I guess we do need some heroism and some personal heroism. And what that would be, what do you think? Who is the contemporary hero of today?
Okay, and one more from up the balcony. Is there a... Yep. Is there one there? Okay, and one from down here then. Yes, just there, just there. Lady with the white polo neck.
Hi, hello. I have a question. So, as an individual, as you just said, maybe as government, they still have some options to deal with today's emergencies or something. But as individuals, should we still insist our passions to some disciplines of humanities, like philosophy, arts, and also like some other disciplines? And also another question is, still as an individual, when we saw this so many overwhelmed realities, should we, like, sometimes it's kind of like a conflict, like we will feel painful, we will have sympathies towards those another people who suffered from wars or something, but we can do nothing about that. So do you have any opinions about that?
Sorry, I didn't get...
I think if I understood you correctly, your point was that we need interdisciplinary approaches, and also that it's very hard to understand and empathize with other people in contemporary context. Is that correct? Would that be a fair summation?
Do you mean the first question?
Well, both, but...
Sorry for that, sorry for my language.
Could you put it, treat me please, I don't mean with irony, as an idiot. Could you put it in very clear, simple way? Because I missed the point.
I will make it brief. So as individuals today, we have very less power to change anything actually, the reality. So should we still insist some original passion towards some disciplines like philosophy and arts, and how these disciplines can still have some effect toward our reality right now?
Okay, I get it now.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
so rattling through Marx and Jewishness, the Balkans, 21st century heroes, and whether individuals can use their access to philosophy and other disciplines to maximize their power. Go.
Okay. That's what I like. Now you are a true comrade, Stalin. Sorry. No, first, Marx. Now, my answer may surprise you. I was still, when I was young, under socialism, trained in Marxism. We had a very good professor who knew Hegel and Marx very well. And already at that point, I don't think this is Marx at his best, his early text on the Jewish question. His idea is simply that Jews, as Marx describes them in almost anti-Semitic cliché terms, the Jews are obsessed by rituals, even, I think this is Marx's example, how they eat, how they shit, everything should be regulated, and so on. That they are the pure embodiment of the capitalist logic. So, the only way to solve the Jewish question is to abolish capitalism. And what is not clear with Marx is, again, I hope you know the text, this early one on the Jewish question, I think, zur Judenfrage. When he is describing Jews like this, it's not clear, is he consciously describing a cliché, or does he mean Jews are really like that. I have problems with that Marx. Or to go even a step further, when I was young, the big passion was the young Marx. Alienation and all that. On the contrary, I think this is the worst Marx. If you look at the roots for Stalinism, it's in the young Marx. I think there are two great Marxist corpus texts. One is his analysis of 48 revolution, 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte, and so on. And the other is the entire complex of the critique of political economy. The crucial moment for Marx was the failure of the 48 revolution, and then he did what all decent later Marxists do. What Lenin did after outbreak of World War I. You go to Switzerland and you start reading Hegel. Marx did precisely this in early 50s. And all good things, I think, came from that. What I, on the other hand, don't accept is this right-wing idea, which I find disgusting, that communism is, from the very beginning, anti-Semitic. Are they crazy? Look at the early Soviet Union, first years under Lenin. Not what democracy it wasn't, but look at the guys, 8, 10 guys, Politburo, who really ran things. The majority of them were Jews. Look, now I will say something very provocative, but I like it. Look at, KGB was first called Cheka, the early. Yes. You know that there were 25% of Jews in first generation Cheka, 20% of Lithuania, Latvia, Baltic nations, and a minority of Russians. I don't mean this as a criticism. No. I mean that you can precisely locate at the level of anti-Semitism when Comrade Stalin, who is turning on and off lights, entered the game. The left became anti-Semitic more and more explicitly with Stalinism. That's why I don't accept the claim that there is anti-Semitic left. Of course, there are leftists who are obviously, at least in a half-covered way, anti-Semitic. But I think we should read this absolutely as a symptom of the fact that there is something deeply wrong with that left. Look at Hugo Chavez. He made, when things started to go wrong in Venezuela, towards a couple of more or less openly anti-Semitic statements, and none other than Fidel Castro corrected him publicly. He said, don't talk about this, you shouldn't, and so on. So again, anti-Semitism is always a sign that the leftist project turned wrong. Now, Balkan, it's so, okay, I will not repeat it here because it's everywhere on YouTube, I think, my old joke, but I will briefly condense it. You know what, me coming from there, it's incredible how difficult it is to even locate where is the dividing line. For us in Slovenia, it's clear. We are still Central Europe with Croatia, Balkan begins. You talk to a Croatian who will say, we are Europe, Catholics with Serbia, Balkan begins. Many Serbs are telling me we are still civilization, Albanians down there are the true Balkan. But it goes in the other direction. For Austrians, we are Balkan because we are Slavs. For Germans, Austrians are already Balkan, Empire and so on. For the French, German with their dark barbarian past are, and for you British, I like this. All of continental Europe is Balkan, and Brussels is the new Constantinople. Is, So what my problem, and this brought me great problems, is a certain fake folklore of Balkan as a crazy part of the world where people just have sex, dance, drink, shoot at each other. I think this is the Western cliché of Balkan. And my problem with very good director in his movies, Emir Kusturica, his Underground and so on, it's not that he is too Balkanesque, but that he tried to make his career on giving to the West what it wants to see in Balkan, a crazy land where people are irrational, kill each other, and so on and so on. So I think that the danger is not just this Central European one where we project, or Western Europe, our traumas into Balkan. My good friend Mladen Dolar, a philosopher, paraphrased Lacan. Unconscious is structured like language. His formula was European unconscious is structured like Balkan. Europe projects all its repressed, dark ideological aspect onto Balkan. This is why when there was a civil war in Yugoslavia falling apart, I hated Western enlightened people who ask me, you come from there, give us a psychoanalysis, what is going on in Balkan? My answer was always the same. Sorry, we from Balkan are quite normal people. The only idiots who don't have it is you in the Western Europe. You need psychoanalysis, not us. And for me, this is the tragedy, for example, of Serbia. They did horrible things under Milosevic, but at the same time, my God, Serbia, I'm the first to admit, has the greatest democratic tradition of all ex-Yugoslav nations. Already, when they overthrew the previous dynasty, Obrenović and this Karađorđević took over, they had a very strong social democratic party. They had progressive constitution and so on and so on. So I'm totally opposed to this myth, which was alive in early 90s while the war went on. You know, Balkan is a complex area. To understand it, you have to know 500 or 1,000 years of history. No, absolutely not. The explosion of nationalisms could be explained, not totally, but to a good part, in a much simpler way. The big problem, and here is what Milosevic got it right, but others were doing already, is socialism was disintegrating. The ruling, it's not bureaucracy, nomenclatura, let's call it, knew it's approaching its end. And the problem was how to reinvent itself to survive the fall of socialism. The answer was nationalism, to transform itself into advocates of national interests and so on and so on. Let me not lose too much time. Let me go on to heroes today.
21st century heroes.
Sorry?
21st century heroes.
I agree with you first on one maybe paradoxical point. I believe in the necessity of heroes, even leaders, because I'm not an optimist about, sorry to use this term, human nature. I think precisely when we think that we are free in our consumerist, stupid daily life, we are just lazy. We follow our desires. We are not ready to sacrifice ourselves and so on. And there is something like an emancipatory leader. Okay, to use the usual example, of course he has his limits, Mandela. The message of Mandela was not the Stalinist one. I know better than you what is really good for you. It was a simple, Obama used the same term, but he misused it. You can. The message of a leader is, no, you are not screwed up, limited to your stupid particular destiny. You can reach beyond it. So I think that this type of emancipatory leader, the leader whose message is, yes, you can reinvent yourself and so on, are needed today more than ever. Let me finish with two names. He's a modest guy, but I need to mention him again and again. All these stupid wars, Ukraine, Israel, you know that Assange is still there, 10 miles from here, 23 hours per day alone. He is allowed one walk, only with guard, not meeting with others. There is still no accusation formally against him. It's a nightmare. And you know, when he got married, he wasn't even allowed to meet physically. Stella Morris, it was a glass wall between them. You know what happened? I was told, because I wasn't able to attend it. In the next room, some serial killer, a well-known mobster, was celebrating birthday with 40 people invited. All mingling there, and that's with Assange. What I like about Assange is it's much more refined. I've written about it. It's not simply he made us see something. We all knew that, the dirty things, but he prevented us from ignoring it. We cannot pretend that we didn't know it, because many liberals that I know have this hypocritical logic. Yeah, the state has to do some torture here, dirty thing there, but let's gently ignore it, criticize it a little bit publicly, and so on. And this is the role of Assange. The second role, even more important, I think, is his book about Google, where he shows up how deeply connected these new digital mega companies, Google and so on, are with American secret services and so on and so on, that it's the same informational complex. So it's not just abstract artificial intelligence. Look at it concretely, how, for example, Google is connected with American secret services and so on and so on, how we already are controlled. So he would be one hero. The other hero that I mentioned in my speech, if I were to choose one absolute hero of the 20th century, I'm sorry if you already know this name, please Google him. Marek Edelman, a Polish Jew who, it's an incredible story. First, he was a Bundist, more socialist Jew. He was a key figure, second in command of the ghetto uprising. Then he survived it. He was one of the leading persons in Warsaw uprising. He survived it. He stayed in Poland with a beautiful metaphysical justification. When anti-Semitism was reinvented by communists, he said, I don't have anything great to say. I feel like a stone in Auschwitz. I'm just there. Somebody has to be here, saying nothing just to be there. Then he played a crucial role in Solidarność negotiations, and when there was the first Intifada, he wrote an open letter to my Palestinian friends where he says, my God, this Stalin is a strange guy.
He's having a difficult night.
And there he says, I support your struggle if it remains non-violent. But I am with you, a very moderate, beautiful stance. These people are my heroes. And I don't believe too much this idea, everything is manipulated, we don't control everything. No, those in power are still afraid of people saying too much, you know. Otherwise, people like Assange, they wouldn't be effectively so terrorized. So no, we are not simply powerless. The last thing about that discipline and so on.
What can individuals do?
Sorry?
That was the question. What can individuals who feel powerless do? Should they should they take refuge in discipline?
You know what the problem today? I will point out this paradox. You know that on the one hand, we perceive our situation as powerless, totally manipulated, you don't control anything, but at the same time, the hegemonic ideology today is elevating us into free individuals in the sense of, for example, the most disgusting ideology today for me is the ideology which sustains precarious work. It's a very nice message between the lines. It is, precarious workers are really like small capitalists. We are all capitalists. You have a little bit of money and you can freely decide. Do you go to a holiday? Do you invest in your health? Or you buy a car and are Uber driver or whatever. So, did you notice, that's the paradox, how at the same time with this idea, system dominates us, is the idea that everything that we are ultimately radically responsible for ourselves. We have this attitude of, make an effort, individually do it, you can do it. So the thing I would have done here is to precisely turn this around. In the sense of, yes, we are most enslaved to the system precisely when we perceive ourselves as free consumerist individuals. You buy a cake, whatever you want, you go here, you go there. This apparent freedom, and don't be afraid. I'm not, Comrade Stalin, I'm not opposing formal freedom to real freedom. Yeah. Freedom must always be formal. Marx knew it. But what I want to say is that this type of freedom, which is based on the model of, as if big life decisions are decisions like you go to a patisserie and is it strawberry cake or cheesecake? No. There are much more radical decisions. The true decisions are where, with all pathetics, where you choose yourself, what you are. You don't just choose objects or even other persons. You choose your own identity. And here, a true change has to begin. And that's why I think that the first step out of this domination of the anonymous system is to see how fake your individual freedom is. Not in the sense of I'm totally manipulated, but in a much more radical sense that you are totally manipulated precisely when you think you are free. Like what is more free than just searching on the web? You go from this pornographic site to another site or whatever. At that point, you are completely enslaved. And I accept this paradox to the end. I will now sound a totalitarian, I know. There is no freedom without strong self-discipline. Freedom is not relaxation for me. Freedom is duty. Kant saw this, the philosopher, not the dirty word. Old philosophical joke, sorry.
I love it.
Sorry.
Can we end on a dirty word? I love that so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've overrun. Thank you for staying. I'm sorry I didn't get to more of you, but I think you'll agree that every word that Slavoj said was fascinating.
No, I'm grateful to you, and I'm just...
And he will be signing copies of his brilliant book, so you can go and meet him and get him to sign. I hope you feel a little bit less powerless tonight. I certainly do. I've cleared up the issue about my Jewish origins.
you got my point.
Oh,
really,
yeah, no.
In my depth, I'm a dirty anti-Semite, no?
And so it's a win for me. I hope it's been a win for you. Thank our great speaker.
No.
Have a great evening.
Let me just, one word, conclude. When you said philosophy and so on, yes, we need it more than ever today, even in our daily lives. Because, the tragedy of our era is that we are confronting new problems where old religious, other traditional wisdoms no longer work. Look at the problem of abortion. You have to decide about things when does the fetus become human being, which there is no answer to this in the ancient wisdom or ecology and so on. So in some sense, philosophy was never more important than today. You need to, or what is freedom? For example, the problem of artificial intelligence and so on and so on. So yes, philosophy is needed more than ever. And let me conclude just with reflexive, for example, to understand anti-Semitism. A minimum of philosophical reflection is needed. In what sense? You should not approach it in the sense, but are Jews really like that? You know, the way they are described by anti-Semites. The moment you do this, you are lost. Because the true question is not, imagine my old example, I already repeated it here 2 days ago in London even. Imagine I'm in 1935 in Germany debating an anti-Semite. And he tells me, but some things may be even true. He tells me, why is there such a great number of Jews in art criticism? They dominate it. Well, after a point, it was probably true. He tells me, but Jews are seducing German girls. Well, I hope they do and the other way around. That's all I have to say. You know what I want to say? The problem is not, are Jews really like that? The problem is, why did the Nazis, to sustain their self-identity, need a figure like a Jew? There is the problem. They need, if you take out of Nazi edifice the figure of the Jew, what remains is something horrible, social antagonism. To sustain their vision of society as an organic whole, where do antagonisms come from? From the outside, from the Jew. This is the beginning of philosophical reflection. You don't simply accept a question. You radicalize the question itself. Thanks very much. I'm just sorry that I'm repeating.
That was the encore, by the way.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah?